plenty of geological features that are amazing. You know, when you're up on the passes, you're looking out over all the mountains and everything below you, and you've just struggled to climb 3,000 feet up a mountain. You're breathing hard because of the air. And now you're looking out at just the grandeur of the Sierra around you. And there's no roads, no cities, no nothing, just all wilderness. But what's most amazing, I mean, all that is fantastic. What's most amazing is just being away from everything, being in nature that long. I mean, that quieting of the mind, that meditative walking, the no more cell phone noise, no more busyness, it really gives you time to connect with nature and with yourself.
All right, I'm here with Ethan Gallogly.
Gallogly.
I did it so Gallogly, but then it's like Gallogly.
There you go.
You have to emphasize it. It's a little more fancier. I did it so well in the pregame, but that's okay. Gallogly. See, I need to rush through it. Okay, but anyways, I'm here with Ethan Gallogly. That's I'm saying close enough. I need to rush right through it. He's been on my other podcast, and now we want to get into the Muir Trail. What's a Fred Muir Trail, or it's a
John Muir.
John Muir, Fred Muir. Who is Fred Muir? I don't know.
I don't think there is a Fred Muir.
This is hump day, ladies and gentlemen. It's Wednesday. I don't know. Everything's going crazy. So, but we're going to get into, you got your own thumbprint. You've got a book out, but I want to, tell us a little about yourself, where you're from, and how'd you get into what you do? Take it away.
Oh, sure. I'm a retired professor. When I was 50, I hiked the John Muir Trail, and I was just blown away. I mean, the scenery, the wilderness. I'd been hiking for 30 years, but nothing prepared me for that. And the experience of being in the woods for 28 days straight, it was just amazing. And for those of you who don't know, the Muir Trail runs mostly above 10,000 feet. It goes over the highest points in the Sierra Nevada, from Yosemite National Park to Mount Whitney. So I hiked this thing. It's 211 miles long. And I just wanted to share it with people. I was teaching at the time, so I was going to give a lecture at my school. But long story short, the lecture got preempted. But, as a professor, I did all this research, history, all that stuff. And I said, I've got enough here for a book. And I started putting together a book, and I realized no one's going to want to read a history of the John Muir Trail straight up. So I decided to make it into a novel based loosely on my own hiking experiences. And I wove it together into a story, which is called The Trail. And it's been doing great, Michael. I mean, it's been a consistent bestseller in the outdoors category in Amazon. It's gotten stellar reviews. It won a couple of literary awards, was a Next Gen Indie finalist. So it's just been taking off. It's been doing great. And, your listeners can get it on Amazon in a bookstore, or if they prefer on Audible. The Audible copy is just amazing. The narrator did a beautiful job. So yeah, I've been hiking for 30 years and am an author of a book.
Awesome. I'm curious to know a little bit about the history of the John Muir Trail, and that is did the Chumash Indians scale it, or what does it tell us a little about what do you know about the incipient stages of the trail?
Sure. So before there was a trail, right? I mean, in the early days, the first trails were probably animal tracks. The animals would go in search of food and all that. And then the Native Americans would follow the animals, and the tracks would widen. Now, the Native Americans would mostly go east to west, across the Sierra, sometimes to trade and so forth. The Muir Trail goes roughly, I mean, it's not completely, the first leg does go west to east, but east to west. No, west to east. Yeah. See, now I'm like my name. But other than the first and last leg of the trail, most of it's north to south across the crest of the Sierra.
Right.
And so that, I mean, some Native Americans probably walked there just to see the peaks and explore. I mean, we've all got this explorer, gene in us, but that wouldn't have been a trade route or something, that they would have taken. So then the early explorers came out and followed the Native American trails. Probably before the explorers, we had the sheep herders, taking their flocks to graze in the Sierra and actually causing damage that Muir was onto. But then the explorers came and started mapping and looking at the geology and geography of the Sierra. A lot of it motivated by the search for gold, of course, in those days. But they started mapping out the various rivers and boundaries. And I think it was Theodore Solomons who got the idea originally. Why don't we put a trail across the crest of the Sierra from north to south? And they were going to call it I don't know, the high Sierra route or something like this. And it was sponsored originally by the Sierra Club and the California government. I mean, this is going back to the early, I think, 1700s. This goes way back when Muir was president of the Sierra Club, when it had just been founded. And Muir passed on. And actually, Muir never hiked this trail. That's the interesting thing. He hiked all over the Sierra. No one really knows where he went, but he did not hike the John Muir Trail. It was
Huh.
after his death, when they were looking for funding, that some, consultants from the legislation suggested that if the Sierra Club calls this the John Muir Trail in his honor, that it might be easier to get funding. And so that's where the name came from. And they started building it, and it took years to make the trail. I mean, you can imagine you can only work in the Sierra a couple of months a year because of the snow. They had to mule everything up there. We don't have heavy equipment, or, we don't have, I mean, they could use dynamite, but they didn't have, any of the tools we do now, no helicopters, nothing like that. So, these were people working on mules by train, mule train, going up and making trail little by little across the crest of the Sierra. I mean, even figuring out the route was difficult because originally they wanted it to be an equestrian trail. No one imagined hiking that far. And so they had to find passes that you could get a horse over. And that was a challenge too. But it all came together, and it's a historic trail, and it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So yeah, I get into the history a lot more in my book, but it's fascinating how this kind of thing came together. And I don't know if we could ever do something like that now. It'd
I was
be
going to mention that
really
too.
tough.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, budget, time, people, it's a challenge. But this thing was going on during the Depression. It's pretty amazing.
Where does it start? Does it start with Northern California up to Southern Washington, or where is it really kind of
No, you're
come
that
off?
that would be much longer.
Okay.
The Sierras essentially in California. So it starts the John Muir Trail starts from Yosemite Valley,
Okay.
and there's some debate where it officially starts, but essentially Yosemite Valley. Then it goes up to Tuolumne Meadows, and then it goes south from there to Mount Whitney, the top of Mount Whitney, which is the tallest peak in the continental United States. And then there's a little trail that's not the official trail that goes down from Whitney so that you can get out, right?
Right. I've driven all through like, Shasta Mountains and Northern California and all that. It's just
So
gorgeous.
Shasta,
Yosemite, I've been there. It's just gorgeous.
right. Now Shasta is huge. Shasta is one of the biggest mountains in California. Not quite as big as Whitney, but only by a few hundred feet. And Shasta is amazing. I mean, I've been up that thing. Well, I've tried to get up it 5 times. I've been up it 3 times. And what's cool about Shasta is it's got all these glaciers up there, and you can get to the summit, and then you can sit down on your butt, take an ice axe and slide down 3,000 feet of snow. It is the largest, most exciting, most incredible snow slide I think I've ever been on. It's
Wow.
just this exhilarating ride. The snow comes flying up between your legs, and you're just going over bumps and things. And yeah, if you get out of control, you got the ice axe, but amazing ride down. I mean, if you've never done it, it's something. But we've also had some disasters on Shasta. My buddy went up with me and didn't know how to hold his ice axe, and he held it by the stem, and of course the tip caught when he put it in, and it just ripped it out of his hands, and he went flying down. And but he was okay. He was just upset. Then he had to go climb back up to get his axe. So I mean, it's something. It's a mountain,
Not
but
afraid of an avalanche?
not the route we went. But
Okay.
yes, that is an issue up there. If you climb Rainier, it's a very big issue. You've got to really know your safety. But there's a route up Shasta that doesn't require ropes and all that. You still need ice axe and crampons, those spikes you put on your boots,
Yeah.
but you do not need you don't need to be roped up. Funny story about that, Michael, was the very first time I went to climb Shasta, all my buddies, I mean, I was in my 20s, my buddies had told me, yeah, you need ice axe and crampons. It was the first time I was using them. I trained, I learned how, went up Shasta with my buddy, and neither of us brought snow equipment. I mean, neither of us brought jackets or anything because it was July. And yeah, we knew there was snow because we had these ice axe and crampons, but it just never clicked that it would be cold. And so, I mean, just a real kind of dull moment. But we got up to Helen Lake at 10,000 feet, and we were freezing our buns off, and it starts to sleet and snow. And we're like, oh yeah, if we've got ice axe and crampons, maybe it'll be cold. It never clicked because it was July. So we're up there in shorts and t-shirts and, snow, ice, crampons, and just idiots basically. But we learned. I mean, we came back and did it the next year.
What kind of wildlife you got up there?
I don't know. I don't know up on Shasta. I really don't know. We didn't see much. I'm sure there are birds, but I don't know what's native to Shasta. I mean, you'd have bears and stuff up there, but probably not a lot of critters going all the way up. You get, once you're above the tree line, I don't think there's a lot.
What about the John Muir Trail? Yeah, wildlife on that.
Oh yeah. Well, there's a ton of stuff. I mean, I've seen, bear, I've seen fox, I've seen, beaver, all kinds of stuff out there. Marmots, pikas.
The grizzly bear or just like a
No, no,
black
no,
bear?
not in California. No
Is there
grizzly.
not? Is there grizzly bears in California?
Not that I know of. I don't think so. There used to be. I mean, if you go back, right, the golden bear was a grizzly bear, but
Mhm.
uh, I mean, it's a sad thing, but we killed them all. So as far as I know, the grizzly is extinct in California, unless in the far north anything has come back, because you have to go pretty far north to see grizzly.
Meet the Bolo Pack, the ultimate travel companion that transforms into a hammock, a pop-up tent, and even a cooler. Whether you're hiking, camping, or chilling at the beach, the Bolo Pack has you covered. First up, the Bolo Pack is a sleek, compact backpack, perfect for day trips or long adventures. Need a break? With a simple pull, the Bolo Pack transforms into a relaxing hammock, perfect for catching your breath during hikes. Planning to spend the night? The Bolo Pack also converts into a pop-up tent, giving you shelter wherever you go. And the best part? The Bolo Pack doubles as a cooler, keeping your food and drinks fresh for hours. Let me show you how easy it is to switch between modes. First, the hammock. Just a few simple steps, and you're ready to relax. Next, the pop-up tent for quick shelter setup. And finally, the cooler function, ensuring you stay refreshed on the go. From day hikes to weekend getaways, the Bolo Pack adapts to your needs. Whether you're chilling, camping, or keeping your snacks cool, ready to upgrade your travel game? Get your Bolo Pack today and take your adventures to the next level. Link in the description. So this John Muir Trail, now you've done it once, or you've done it, how many times you've done it?
It depends how you count. I've done sections many times. I've walked the full length of the Muir Trail 2.5 times. I did it first at age of 50, and that's what inspired the book. Then I went back, tried to do it again in 2019, a big snow year. And I got halfway. My boots fell apart from being wet all the time. It was just miserable. It was really deep snow. You were constantly trudging through it. You had the danger of falling through. There were rivers under the snow at parts. And once my boots fell apart, I'm like, no, I'm not finishing this. So I came back again in 2021 with my son just before the book was published in order to check all the little details, the vistas, all this stuff, and just make sure it's all right. Because even though it's a novel, I want it to be the kind of book that when people hike the trail, they could bring with them and they could say, yeah, this is really what it's like. This is accurate. And I've had a lot of reviews like that where hikers have been very impressed by it. So yeah, it was for authenticity, but also just to get out there. I mean, the scene behind me, this is up at Evolution Lakes, and this is
Is
just
this
one.
is this he's got this rocky mountainous, kind of valley that with tall mountains in the background. Is this part of the John Muir Trail?
Yes, yes, absolutely. This is Evolution Lake, and it is drop dead gorgeous up there. And what I don't have in this photo behind me is the alpenglow, but at sunset, you get this special glow on the mountains where they change color. They start out kind of orangey and then red, and you'll get purples and stuff. And it's just spectacular. I mean, I your listeners have to get themselves up there sometime and check this stuff out. Really amazing. And I wouldn't say do the Muir Trail as your first hike if you've never hiked, but there's plenty of shorter stuff that you can do, like the High Sierra Trail or just some of the stuff out of Yosemite. So
Well,
I really recommend getting out there.
yeah, and the lake that's behind you in this picture, ladies and gentlemen, it looks like glass. It has a you don't. It's almost like Forrest Gump's line. Don't know where Earth begins and the sky starts, because this glass on the water, it's mirroring the mountains, and it's just beautiful. Take us on a little bit of the journey through the succession of you on the John Muir Trail. What are some of the highlights? Of course, you can't, it's take you weeks probably to scale this trail, but if you could take us, for the next couple of minutes, take us on some of the highlights and origin of what you experienced.
Well, I think so. It's interesting. I mean, there's plenty of geological features that are amazing. When you're up on the passes, you're looking out over all the mountains and everything below you, and you've just struggled to climb 3,000 feet up a mountain. You're breathing hard because of the air, and now you're looking out at just the grandeur of the Sierra around you, and there's no roads, no cities, no nothing, just all wilderness. And each of those passes is different. There are, 7 major ones that you cross on the Muir Trail, all very high altitude. The highest of the passes gets you up over 14 if you count the trail pass out Whitney, or Forester at I think 13.5-ish. But you're up way high looking at just these incredible vistas. That is the most spectacular part. There's architectural stuff. You've got the Muir Hut, which is this fantastic stone hut that was built up on Muir Pass as kind of a shelter. And it was built all with the natural granite up there in the style of these mountain huts from Italy. So that's an iconic thing. I've got a little image of that on the cover of my book. There's rivers. You've got to cross rivers that are fantastic. You get into valleys. There are just amazing numbers of lakes. You go through Ray Lakes with Fin Dome and peaks that Bolton Brown described as just a dragon and all this. I mean, just and the flowers, the wild flowers you go through and everything. But what's most amazing, I mean, all that is fantastic. But what's most amazing is just being away from everything, being in nature that long. I mean, that quieting of the mind, that meditative walking, the no more cell phone noise, no more busyness, it really gives you time to connect with nature and with yourself. I like to say that, as Muir said, going out is really going in. You're really going on an inward journey on a lot of this hiking. And that's the motivation for this, is really that journey. And then there are the people you connect with. People outside on these long trails are much more open, much more giving, much friendlier. You're likely to make deep connections with people you've just met
Mm.
and get to know them much more honestly. It's much more humane. There's much less of the guardedness we have in a city. So, I talk about this in the book too. I introduce a lot of characters, and the protagonist gets to know them as well. So you get to see why people are out there, and everyone has a different story. And people bond. You get these trail families where groups of people who've kind of gotten together will hike together. A lot of times you'll get these questions on the website like, hey, I'm solo. No one wants to go with me for a month in the wilderness. Is it safe? Will I meet people? People have concern. And the truth is, you're going to meet a ton of really wonderful people out there, and you'll hook up with people. You'll form these lifelong friendships out there. So it's really it's humanity at its best. It's nature at its best. It's just and it's challenging. It's fantastic. I mean, some people try to run this. I think it's worth going slow, but to each their own. It's really a great experience.
What was your longest stretch as you were traveling on the trail?
What do you mean by
Well,
longest?
how long were you on the trail for nonstop? Because you said you did some of it in
20,
pieces.
28 days.
28 days. How do you, are you hunting that whole time? What are you living off of? Important sustenance.
Well, you're eating the other hikers, of course. That's what they're there
Talk
for.
about the humanity.
Right. They're
They give
tasty,
the body, they give their
Get,
body to you.
get the whole Donner Party thing going. No, you pack food. So you're packing dried food in your backpack. You need a bear canister because, there are definitely bears up there. But you typically can carry 10 to 12 days of food, maximum, that you can get into one of these canisters.
Okay.
Some people less, some more, depends how fast you're going. And then there are places along the way you can resupply. So, for example, you get into Red's Meadow Resort and you can mail a bucket there, and you stop in there, and pick up your resupply. Vermilion Valley Resort, VVR, is another place. Muir Trail Ranch, you can have people carry it in by mule. Some people will have their buddies just hike in with a fresh bear can. And some people will hike out. They'll go part way, hike over a pass, go into a town, purchase some food, come back in.
So
I,
there's
I
little hamlets or something, so to speak, along the way.
No, these places are like little ranches. Like
Ah,
BVR, for example, is a little kind of, they've got a restaurant, they've got some
ah,
showers, laundry, they've got some cabins, and you can drive there. You could drive, but it's a big bumpy dirt road. I mean, it's like, it's a short drive, but it would take about 2, 3 hours to drive that road because it's so bumpy. But it's mostly, yeah, there are car campers there, but it's mostly hikers. You've got people doing the Pacific Crest Trail, people doing the Muir Trail. They come in, they all pitch their tent, they have a nice meal, they take a shower, and boom, they're back out on trail again. So
wow.
you're never really leaving the wilderness. There are these places that are designed for hikers, for horse packers, and so forth that are out there. So you don't have to hit a car, hit a road, and come back in, which is what really makes it a special experience. I think in all 211 miles of the Muir Trail, um, you could do it without ever crossing a road, without ever touching a road. You'd probably you'd probably cross one or two just on your way to some of these places for resupply, but they're remote. They're not roads like highways or anything like that. So you could literally spend, a month in the wilderness without ever touching anything with cars or large numbers of people.
If you had to give one trait that the common trait that most people that are on the trail, what do you think that trait, the common denominator everybody would have with each other? Quest, the want, the mentality,
I
the
don't know.
essence.
Everyone's different. We're
Mm.
all out there for different reasons. I think everyone has a love of nature. I can't imagine you'd be out there if you weren't touched and moved in some way by nature. But really, everyone's different. I mean, if you look at the characters in my book, everyone's there for a different reason, but they're all there.
That's great. That's great. Where are you at today? What's going on with your life today?
I'm in Northern California now.
Yeah.
We moved recently, and I've been fixing house, and well, it's been raining, so just doing this kind of thing.
What do you have planned for the future?
More writing. I've got another book that I've started to research, and I'm also doing more hiking. I started last year the Pacific Crest Trail, which is a new ambition for me. That's 2,600 miles. It's crazy from the Mexican border to the Canadian border, just across the mountains. The Muir Trail is a segment of that, but so I've done parts of it. Last year I started and I made about 400 miles. This year I'm going to go back where I left off and see how far I go. As I get older, it's harder to do what they call a through hike, an end-to-end hike, and more power to the folks who've done it. But to through hike the Pacific Crest Trail, you really have to be doing about 15 to 20 miles a day. And I started out okay. I was doing 15-mile days, but day after day, that gets really hard. Get into camp, set up your tent, eat your dinner, go to bed. You're in bed 8:30, 9 o'clock. Wake up 4:35 in the morning, pack your tent, start walking, walk all day, and do it again and again and again. It's really, really hard. And I found it just a little too intense for me. Most of the hikers, not all, there are some people who are older than me who are doing great. I was passed by some 70-year-olds, but most of the hikers on this trail are 20 something. They're trail runners. They're moving really, really fast. And everyone I've talked to, all, the other writers and stuff have said, I've done this trail. One woman had done it twice. And she said, when I section hiked it, when I did it bit by bit, I really saw the places that I was going through. But when she was through hiking it, it was like eyes down, trying to make her miles, just burning through. And yes, there are great experiences through hiking. You bond with people. It's a tremendous achievement. But for me, I'm just too slow. I love my scenery, so I'm just taking it bit by bit now.
Hey, look, I've driven from Vancouver to Tijuana, and that was difficult. Just driving. I'm just hiking, let alone I can't imagine.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
hiking over the mountains and through the desert, not
right.
not on this nice Highway 5.
Take them a year at least. I mean, we're to do that to Vancouver to Mexico, right?
No, no, not at all.
No. How long would it stay?
So there, the fastest known time I think is just under a month now, where they were
But that's
running.
they're just going for it. They're not
Right,
they're not they're not
they're
soaking
doing
it
like
up.
50 miles a day,
Right. They're
but
they're Forrest Gumping in that shit. They're not like taking their time
exactly.
walking.
Well, but it's impressive.
Yeah, oh sure, yeah.
I would say a typical through hike of the Pacific Crest Trail is about 5 months.
Mm.
So you're not a full year. In fact, you couldn't do it in a full year because you're kind of chasing the weather, right? You start out early in the desert and you don't, you want to hit the desert after the rain and snow, but not you don't want to be in the desert when it's 100. That was part of the problem I had because I was slow it just kept getting hotter. And, I was baking at the end. So you want to get through the desert, the southern part, pretty early on, and then you want to hit the Sierra, ideally after the snow. This year the snow was crazy, and so people were skipping it and coming back to it. But you've got to get to Canada before October, because once October hits, you're snowed in, so you'll never make it, or you'll be in trouble out there. So you've got weather chasing you at both ends.
Yeah, the Native Americans had to be cognitive of that. That, you hear stories about that all the time, about how when they did their treks, they have to strategize. Fascinating, fascinating stuff. Tell everybody how they can find out more about you.
I've got a website, ethangallogly.com. You'll have to spell that out for folks. But
Gallogly,
there you
Gallogly. I like to say Gallogly. It's Gallogly. I got it. I did it that last time, right?
Nice. Good job.
Thank you.
But yeah, so you got my website, or just look up the book. Just go to, go online, go into your bookstore and look for The Trail. You'll find it.
Ethan, an absolute pleasure. Thank you much for sharing.
Pleasure, Michael.
Thanks for joining us. Gear up for your next adventure and head over to BOLOTOR.com to check out the amazing Bolo Pack and their other innovative outdoor gear. Catch you next time.